You're standing in the back of the Owl and Thistle, long after the last pint has been poured and the music has faded out. The pub feels different at this hour, quieter, heavier, just a different kind of quiet than you get during the day. The lights are low, the wood is dark, and the air has that cool stone and basement smell that only old buildings get. You take a few steps towards the back hallway, the one that leads down to the basement. The floorboards creak under your feet, but there's another sound too, a soft shuffle behind you, like someone moving just out of sight. You turn, expecting to see a coworker finishing up for the night, but the room is empty. Chairs stacked, bar wiped down, no one there. But you keep walking. The hallway narrows, the ceiling drops, and the temperature dips just a few degrees. You can hear the faint hum of the building settling, or maybe something else. A whisper of movement, a breath, a presence. At the bottom of the stairs, you pause. There's a doorway to your left, leading into the old basement room. It's dark, but you can feel someone standing just inside the threshold. Not close, not threatening, just watching. You blink, and the feeling is gone, but the cold lingers. Welcome back to Haunts in the Pacific Northwest. Today we're heading into one of Seattle's oldest and most character-filled pubs, the Owl and Thistle. Tucked into the edge of Pioneer Square, it's the kind of place where the wood is dark, the ceilings are low, and their history sits right on the surface. You feel it the moment you walk in. Most people know the Owl for its live music, its Irish pub energy, and the way it fills up on a Friday night. But underneath all of that, there's a quieter side to the building. A side that comes out after hours, when the crowds are gone and the old stone walls seem to remember things you can't quite put your finger on. In this episode, we're going to take a look at the stories that have lingered here, the footsteps in the back hallway, the figure seen in the basement doorway, and the sense that someone is standing just behind you when you're locking up for the night. These aren't big, dramatic hauntings. They're subtle, personal, the kind that stick with you long after you've gone home. So grab a seat, settle in, and let's head downstairs into one of Pioneer Square's most quietly haunted spaces. The Owl and Thistle sits right on the edge of Pioneer Square, in a part of Seattle that's older than most people realize. This whole neighborhood was rebuilt after the Great Fire of 1889, but the foundations underneath it, the stone, the brick, the tunnels, those go back even further. When you walk into the Owl, you're stepping into a building that's been part of Seattle's story for well over a century. The pub as we know it today opened in 1993 when the Geary family brought their Irish roots to Seattle and turned this old space into the warm, wood-paneled gathering place it is now. Before that, the building had gone through a handful of lives. Offices, storage rooms, small businesses that came and went. Pioneer Square has always been a place where people drifted in and out. Loggers, sailors, railroad workers, folks looking for a fresh start or a quick escape. And buildings like this one absorbed all that energy. They still do. What makes the Owl and Thistle especially interesting is that what's underneath. Like a lot of Pioneer Square, the pub sits right on top of old underground level of the city, the original street grade before Seattle raised the roads. Some of those old passageways are sealed off now, but the bones of them are still there. You can feel it in the low ceilings, the thick walls, and the way sound carries differently in the back rooms. Over the years, the Owl has become a gathering place for musicians, regulars, late night crowds, and people who just want a pint in a place that feels lived in. But talk to anyone who's worked there long enough. and they'll tell you the same thing. The building has its own personality. It creaks, it shifts, and sometimes it feels like someone else is sharing the space with you. Not in a dramatic way, just in that quiet, old building way where history doesn't always stay in the past. For a place that's always full of music and conversation, the Owl and Thistle has a surprising number of stories that happen when the building is quiet. Most of them come from people who've worked here late: cooks, bartenders, musicians, packing up after a set, and the stories all circle around the same parts of the building: the back hallway, the basement stairs, and that old room at the bottom. One of the most common things people talk about is the sound of footsteps in the hallway after closing. Not heavy footsteps, just a slow, steady walk, like someone taking their time heading toward the back. You hear it, you turn around, and there's no one there. The kind of thing you can brush off once or twice, but not after you've heard it enough times to know the difference between a building settling and someone actually moving. Then there's the hallway at the bottom of the stairs. A lot of people have mentioned this: a figure standing just inside the door, not moving, not coming closer, just there. Usually a man, always in the same spot. You catch him out of the corner of your eye, or you feel him before you see anything at all. And then you look straight at the doorway and he's gone. But the feeling that someone was there doesn't leave right away. Musicians who've played late sets talk about packing up their gear and feeling like someone is watching from the hallway. Not in a threatening way, more like someone curious, or someone who's been there a long time and is just used to sharing the space. A couple people have said they've heard a quiet voice behind them, like someone trying to get their attention, only to turn around and find the room completely empty. Then there's the cold spots. Not drafts, not open doors, just sudden pockets of cold air that show up in the basement room or halfway down the stairs. You walk through them, and it feels like stepping into a different temperature entirely, like someone else just passed through the same space a moment before you did. None of these stories are dramatic. No flying bottles, no slamming doors, just small, constant moments that add up over time. The kind of hauntings that feel woven into the building itself, quiet, steady, and always just a few steps behind you. The thing about the Owl and Thistle is that it doesn't try to be spooky. It's not leaning into the ghost stories or playing up the history. It's just an old pub doing what old pubs do, holding on to the people who passed through it. And maybe that's why the stories here feel the way they do. They're not big moments, they're not dramatic, they're just familiar. When you're in the building late at night, you start to understand why so many people have had the same experiences: the low ceilings, the stone walls, the way the sound changes as you move from room to room. It all creates this sense that you're never completely alone. Not in a bad way, more like the building has its own rhythm and you're just stepping into it for a little while. I think that's why what I like about about places like this. The hauntings aren't about fear, they're about presence and the idea that a place can hold on to the people who've worked here, played music here, laughed here, lived parts of their lives here, and maybe some of that energy sticks around long after the night is over. When you walk out into the street and the door closes behind you, the building goes quiet again, but it doesn't feel empty. It feels like it's waiting for the next night, the next song, the next story. And maybe, somewhere down in that basement hallway, someone else is waiting too. Thanks for spending time with me down here in the quieter corners of the Owl and Thistle. Places like this don't need big stories to feel haunted. Sometimes it's the small moments, the footsteps in an empty hallway, or that cold spot on the stairs that stays with you long after you've left. If you ever find yourself in Pioneer Square, stop in for a pint, listen to some music, and take a look towards the back hallway. You might not see anything, but you might feel something. And honestly, that's enough. This has been Haunts of the Pacific Northwest, and I'll see you next time. And again, thank you so much for listening. And I also want to thank my friends and family that have been really working with me and encouraging me to get this out there. It's not something easy for me to do because if you notice, I do have a hard time speaking, but it's just something I enjoy. I love talking about these kind of things. And yeah, again, thanks so much. And we'll be getting out more episodes here shortly.